to motive. Because this is more than simply a night out. It was framed. It was then packaged in a way that made it seem softer, simpler, and almost innocent to the general audience. And that framing is precisely the issue the speaker claims. He deliberately returns to the beginning rather than in a dramatic way. It matters how someone acts when they are aware of the specifics. He clarifies that it wasn't a prearranged party. There was no big plan, no unexpected get-together, and no passionate justification for everyone's gathering. It began informally. Food, a location, a late-night choice that turned into something else. Summarized his statement that they were merely looking for a place to eat. A particular fact is significant because it clearly refutes Tamar's later claim that she went above and that, as a result, he said that the framing flipped facts rather than just stretching it. When he starts mentioning locations E12, the tone changes. Every place turns into a timestamp, a breadcrumb in a history that, in his opinion, differs from what the public was informed. He talks of being exhausted, wanting to get home, and not wanting to stay up late. This story, and this is the current state of affairs, my dear. For some reason, even though you were, seems to drag on. One stop becomes another. Mid-drive plans change. On the spot, decisions are taken, and this is where unease appears, because, according to the way he describes it, when Mendeecees came into the picture. Quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, just visible, but not enough to halt any movement. Paraphrase statement about being instructed to get out of his automobile and head to E12. The tone darkens at that point. It wasn't because of what had transpired yet, but rather because it didn't feel right. He talks about how he felt uncomfortable seeing conversations. The closeness, familiarity, and didn't fit the narrative. He observes instead of accusing. And that distinction is important since the entire argument is based on narrative versus observation. He states clearly that he was uneasy, not envious, not furious, just conscious. The detail that alters our perception of the night then appears. He claims he didn't go upstairs when they got back to Tamar's house. Not because he was exhausted or inebriated, but rather because of what he had previously seen in the automobile. The remark to kissing in the rear of the car is paraphrased. In his account, that event becomes crucial because it clarifies everything that comes after. Why didn't he check? I assume they wanted to be up and DC got finished kissing in the back of that fucking car. I didn't go upstairs when we were dropped off at Tamar's place because of this. You were sitting on his lap in that damned automobile, so I jumped in and drove home. Later, see how she's doing. However, he didn't feel compelled to participate in whatever came next. In his thoughts, the situation has already gone too far. This is where the tension really picks up since, according to him, once he left, he knew whether or not they were underscore your ass from the rear and ran your head through the headboard. All right? However, if someone needs to be looked at about what happened to you in youth, his friend must be unaware of what transpired inside that residence. He makes that very. However, he also makes it plain who stayed behind. And that's where public conjecture and the story intersect. He doesn't explain what took place. He says he doesn't know. Is Tamar intoxicated? Why is she seated in this manner on Messie's lap? Why is she perched on MD's lap? Here's the thing, you see. Music, I'm sorry I even made this decision. However, he takes up harmful action. He asks, who would know? At that point, the narrative shifts from being about a night out to being about responsibility. The way he puts it isn't a paraphrase of who went upstairs explosive. It's practically resigned to domination. However, the connotation is difficult to accept, because up until then, a lot of the online conversation had focused on him, his closeness, his quiet, and his refusal to provide clarification. All of a sudden, the focus flips. He clarifies that when the allegation initially surfaced, Tamar went, he received a barrage of messages on the internet that something significant had occurred. People were asking him questions, assuming he knew more, and waiting for him to confirm or refute notions. Can't he? He claims that he purposefully remained silent since he didn't want to protect anyone. understood after he departed. Nevertheless, his name came to be associated with the mayhem. That's where anger seeps through. He talks about being perceived as untidy, opportunistic, and attention-seeking. However, the opposite is true in his narrative. He remained silent until he felt compelled to, until the public narrative no longer reflected his own experience. The sentence that changes the tone